Jai Hind everyone. I am Dr. Monika Agarwal, Assistant Professor, AKGEC Engineering College, Ghaziabad. My subject is Soft Skill 1, subject code KNC 101. In today's lecture, I am going to discuss about a very important concept of communication, which is the basis of communication skill given in Unit 1. The topics covered in today's lecture are your communication skills, the meaning of communication, and the types of communication which are verbal and non-verbal. Communication. We all know that communication is the lifeline of human survival. We survive because we keep on communicating with the people around us and the surroundings as well. We communicate within ourselves only. We connect with the environment and people around us through communication. We are alive, we have to communicate with the people around us, with the environment and the surroundings around us. For professional people, communication is also an important requirement in every profession and business. We all communicate with people, then only we are able to conduct our duties, our roles and the activities in our profession, our business. So, a professional participates in various communication events and the activities which are conducted only with the help of the process of communication in many ways. So, the meaning of communication, the word communication, this is derived from a Latin word communis or communicare, which means to share or to make something common. It is an established fact that English is a modern language and most of the words, in fact almost all the words are derived from ancient European languages. So, this word communication is also derived from a Latin word which means to share something, something which is made common among many people or between two people. This communication is done for some facts, some information, thoughts or any other need or requirement. So, communication means to make common the facts, information, thoughts or any requirement, some need or urge. So, communication is the way with which we connect with people, with the events, with the surroundings around us, because we share our thoughts, we share our information which we have as well as the urges which are there within us. So, as we know that this term is important for understanding the actual inherent verbal meaning of the word communication. But in fact, the communication is much more wide than this just sharing, because sharing emphasizes upon the exchange of information, but we have to focus on exchange of everything which makes a common understanding among people who are involved in the process of communication. When it comes to define this term communication, we have many definitions, but here we are talking about the common basics of the term communication. As we know that communication is an exchange of facts, it is an exchange of ideas, it may be opinions or emotions by two people or more people. So, it is an exchange of facts for some purpose, and it is not a single or momentary act, it is a process. As it is said that communication is the process by which information is transmitted between individuals or between organizations or groups, so that an understanding response results. The overall focus of every communication is to develop an understanding between the people who are involved in the process of communication. So, the purpose of communication is to evolve an understanding, and that is tested with the help of the response which people make during the process of communication. as I have said that communication is a process that will be dealt with later on. First of all, we must understand that what are various types of communication, because communication is a wide thing. People communicate with each other in different ways. We can categorize the types of communication on the basis of many reference points, but here we are categorizing it on the basis of the channel used in the process of communication. So, on the basis of the channel used, there are two types of communication skills: verbal communication and non-verbal communication. So, these are the two basic categories of communication. First, you can have a look at this flow chart, that this shows that communication can be divided basically into two types, verbal and non-verbal. I have put this non-verbal first because the basic type of communication is non-verbal, and this communication is done with the help of signs and symbols either or through body language. If we talk about signs and symbol, then signs and symbols are of two type again. Signs may be visuals in some symbols like traffic light, and signs may be audio signs or audio symbols. Non-verbal have different dimensions like body language, paralinguistics, proxemics and CHRONEMICS. The other type is verbal, which is evolved later on, in which we use words, which is again of two types, or oral and written. First, we will be dealing in certain detail what is non-verbal communication. It is the most basic form of communication, because as we know that in primitive time our ancestors used to communicate with each other with the help of signs and symbols or some sound symbols. They have not evolved with the formal language. At that time it was done with the help of gestures, with the help of yelling or some drawing, etc. That type of communication is the basic form of communication, and it is non-verbal. What do we mean by non-verbal? Non-verbal means where no words are used. And experts have found that every day we respond to thousands of non-verbal cues and the behaviors, including posture, facial expression, our eye gaze, gestures, tone of voice and many more. Still, we are involved more in the non-verbal communication to survive and to live meaningfully within our surroundings along with the people around us. So, still the importance of non-verbal communication is unquestioned. It is done without the use of words, because the word verbal means word. In non-verbal there is no use of words. We use only signs and symbols. As I have said earlier, that signs may be visual signs. As we drive on road or we walk on road, we see traffic light and different other signboards, or we have these pictures which are very illustrative. We have images, certain images indicate certain meaning, charts, maps, other illustrations, in fact emoticons, and this social media also has a variety of visual signs to convey our thoughts without using words. If we talk about audio signs, we have these bell ringing, different type of sirens, different type of sounds which have their associated meaning. When we hear those sounds, we understand the meaning without the use of words. Second type of non-verbal communication is done through body language. Body language means the appearance of a person, how a person appears, and this appearance includes the way he is showing confident on his face, the dress he has worn, the formal or informal, the way to carry that dress, everything is included in the appearance of a person. We see the person before we talk to him or her. So, appearance makes the first impression, and that is very important impression. And as we know that before actually indulging into the process of communication, the person must feel an interest, an inclination towards making that communication. In that, the appearance of a person plays a very important role. Then comes facial expression. Our face is the mirror of our thoughts. Our face is our best value. We must have the relevant expressions on the face while communicating with people. This facial expressions communicate a lot without using words. If we are happy, that reflects on our face. If we are sad, that reflects on our face. In fact, different emotions are reflected on our face, and that is the best, you can say, mirror of our thoughts and the mind, which we try to hide while verbal communication. But in non-verbal communication, facial expressions play a very vital role. Then comes gestures. Gestures means how we move the different parts of our body, our hands, while talking to people. This non-verbal type of communication, especially this body language, is very important when we are communicating face to face with people around us. It is very important in oral interpersonal communication, and at time of communicating with people face to face, our gestures are very important. So we should it is advisable that we should maintain the relevant and proper gesture to support our verbal communication. So there also our gestures, with or without words, both play a very important role in communicating our intended meaning. Then comes posture. Posture means how we carry our body, how we sit, how we stand, how we walk. So that reflects a lot without words. That goes without saying that if a person is sad and gloomy, his posture will not be straight and alert. He will be stooping, he will be leaning. So that indicates that the person is not in a good mood. The level of confidence is also reflected through posture. These areas of body language need to be studied a lot. They have a very wide implications and wide explanation, but here we have to just understand that postures are a very important aspect of body language and a great non-verbal means of communication. Then comes eye contact. In interpersonal face-to-face communication, eye contact is a thing with which we connect with people more than our words. If we are afraid of looking at the person, that shows that we are not prepared or we are less confident. So eye contact shows our confidence, but this eye contact also has very range of variety. It should not be a stare. If it is a stare, it means something else. If it is a soft look, then it means something else. Confidence also reflects in the eye contact. So eye contact is also an aspect of non-verbal communication. Then comes haptics. Haptics means the touches. Without saying a word, we touch a person, and that touch indicates or means a lot. An affectionate touch can easily be differentiated with a hard touch or with a neutral touch. So haptics is another field of study in the non-verbal communication, but touch is there to indicate the feelings within us without the help of words. That is why it is a non-verbal type of communication. The other aspect of non-verbal communication are paralinguistics. Paralinguistics means those features which go along with the verbal form of, oral form of language. Para means parallel, linguistic means going with the language. That is also called voice modulation. Voice modulation means when we talk to people, when we use the oral form of language, the voice modulation helps in conveying more meaning rather than the literal words. This voice modulation has many aspects. Few of them I have mentioned here. Volume means the loudness of our voice. Volume determines the you can say the emphasis. The volume determines the authority of a person. In fact, volume should be adjusted according to the audience, the distance between the speaker and the audience. That goes without saying that a proper volume should be maintained while talking. If you are not maintaining that proper volume, that speaks a lot. That may be either anxiety, that may be either anger. So, volume should be moderate and it should be suitable according to the situation and the relationship between the sender and the receiver. Then comes pitch. Pitch is the vibration of sound per second in sound, and pitch is more or less related to the biological feature, the speech organs of a person. It is a biological fact that female voice has the higher pitch and male voice organs create lower pitch. Okay, pitch somewhat can be modulated if we want to create certain effect in our speech. Pace. Pace means the speed, number of words spoken per minute. The normal range is from 80 words to 120 words. So, the normal range is maintained in professional and formal type of communication, but less than that pace or more than that range speaks a lot, and that may not be accepted by the listener. So, pace, proper pace should be maintained during speech communication. Then comes intonation. Intonation means we maintain a proper tone of our voice when we talk to people. Tone are two types, falling tone and rising tone. Tone means that we are starting from a lower pitch and going towards the higher pitch, that becomes a rising tone. And if we start from the higher pitch and then go towards the lower pitch, that becomes a falling tone. Rising tones are used in asking questions, okay, but in statements, in normal neutral statements, we use falling tone, and falling tone also indicates the end of the sentence. If you are asking question, then we maintain the high pitch at the end of the sentence. So, these things are helpful in understanding the meaning of the speaker. Next is proxemics. Proxemics means the distance between the people who are involved in the process of communication. At the time of communication, the distance between people speaks a lot. That is studied under the subject name called proxemics. Close proximity indicates informality. The people with whom we are informal, we are friendly, we keep a close proximity, and the people with whom we have a formal relationship, the people who are in authority, with those people while communicating we maintain a bigger proximity, means the distance is more between the sender and the receiver if their relationship is formal. That distance indicates formality. This proxemics is also a dimension of non-verbal type of communication. CHRONEMICS is the time management. Time management, because time is taken as a valuable investment. It is taken as the you can say valuable as money. So, utilization of time as a valuable investment is very important for professionals as well as for communication in normal day-to-day life, because time is an asset. So, it should be utilized as a valuable thing. The second type of communication is verbal communication. Verbal means pertaining to words, because in Latin language the word verb means the word. So, the communication which is done with the help of words is called verbal communication. It may be word of mouth, means the sound form of verb, or in script writing, means any language is translated into script with the help of certain written symbols. So, words can be either word of mouth or in script writing. So, on the basis of the use of words for communication, there are two types of verbal communication: oral verbal communication and written verbal communication. We will know what does it mean. Oral communication means the communication which means to help the other person understand the meaning through sounds. So, oral communication is done with the help of sounds of words, and it is more natural and informal. The basic form of language, the basic form of any language is oral form. The script is developed later on. So, the face to face talks, the speeches, formal or informal speeches, the telephonic talks, the conferences, seminars, formal, informal gatherings, everything depends upon oral communication. So, oral communication is the comprises the most of the part of the working time for professionals. So, many researchers have found that people spend 85% of their working time in communication, okay. And this communication is of all types, like writing, communicating through writing. They spend time just 9% time in writing because it is the least, and 4% in listening, 16% in they spend in reading, and 30% in speaking. So, most of the time people speak and listen to fulfill their duties, to understand their roles and to cooperate and coordinate. This oral communication has lot of advantages. The advantages are quick feedback. When we talk to person face to face, we get the immediate feedback, either oral feedback, verbal feedback, or through the body language, through the non-verbal means. And oral communication becomes more personal and informal. When we talk to the person on certain issue, we become more connected with the person, we become slightly more informal, okay. And it makes an immediate impact. When we talk to people, it makes an immediate impact because it has an opportunity to have quick feedback through interaction. So, oral communication is advantageous for conveying feelings and emotion. As I have written, feelings and emotions are the best communicated at the best through oral communication, and this oral communication is supported through gestures and facial expression. So, oral communication is supported through non-verbal means of communication because this reinforces the oral message. The disadvantages are not missing in oral communication. There are certain disadvantages also. Actually, oral communication demands an ability to think very coherently on the spot. As you speak, you have to think coherently simultaneously. So, it needs more skills and more carefulness if we do not want to be misinterpreted, okay, because when a word is uttered, it cannot be taken back. So, it is very hard to, very difficult to control, and it needs a great skill to control the voice modulation, the pitch, the tone, especially when a person is under stretch, under excitement or anger. Under stress, the person cannot control his body language or voice pitch, etc. So, it is very difficult to be very conscious of your body language at the time of speaking, at the time of indulging in oral communication. One more disadvantage is that through oral communication only, it is very difficult to express the facts and the figures, because facts and figures needs certain accuracy of expression and illustration. So, oral communication falls short to express facts and figures. So, then arises the need of written communication. Written communication is the, you can say, the highest type of communication, the most serious and formal type of communication. Whenever we write something, it becomes a document. So, for written communication, we interact with the use of the written words, using written symbols in the script of a language. Every language has its own script to indicate the sounds and that has some meaning. Those symbols go together to make words and meaningful words. So, any type of interaction that makes use of the written words using written symbols in any script of a language is called written communication. So, when we communicate through letters, either business letters, formal letters or informal letters, through office circulars, memos, manuals, reports, we write telegrams and other office memos, other newspaper publications, bulletins, any type of written communication done for any purpose is a formal type of communication and is higher type of communication, because we use the symbols which become a document. So, while indulging in written communication, we have to be very careful in the selection of words, in the formatting of the document and so many things. The characteristics of written communication are very high, that is why it is taken as the most formal type of communication, because whatever we write, it is easy to preserve and it becomes a record. Okay. And when we want to communicate or express some complex matters, then it is easy to express in writing, because it is easy and accurate presentation of complex matters. As oral communication is not sufficient for facts and figure, written communication makes it easy to present the complex matters in accurate way. And the written documents can also be used as references. All the books, the records of the office, anything. In fact, through the posting on the social media also, every written communication becomes a document and can be used as a reference. Okay. And the possibilities of distortion are less, because once it is written, the reader will read it and understand it, interpret it and decode it in his own way. But the distortion by every person is not possible. So, less distortion possibilities, okay, and less possibilities of misinterpretation also, right. When it comes to the art and literature, then interpretations can be many, but when it comes to formal writing, the business writing, the interpretation should be one and the same for everyone. And when we write something, when we communicate through writing, it becomes easy to verify. Whenever we feel less confident, or whenever we have some doubt, we can refer that document, we can refer to that paper, and it is verified with the help of that written communication. So, there are limitations also of written communication. Always the thing which exists doesn't have only benefits and advantages. There are other sides also. So, written communication also has some limitations. The limitations are that we get slow feedback. When we write something, when we post something, that it takes time to reach the person and then he or she goes through the thing. So, the feedback comes very slow. So, it is not possible to get the immediate response or immediate feedback. It is expensive also, because when we have to write something, we have to use some media, we have to use either paper or we have to use some other electronic media. So, it is expensive also and time consuming, because we have to think a lot, we have to encode the message, because it is going to be a document. So, it is time consuming also. And if you write and communicate to every person without considering whether that writing, that language which you are using is understood by the other person or not, it becomes useless, because it is useless for illiterate person. It is also useless for those people who do not know that language which you are using. So, it is useless for those people. It is also difficult to maintain secrecy. When you write something and preserve something as a record, it is hardly possible to maintain the secrecy, because whosoever reads can get the content. There is lack of flexibility also. Flexibility means that if once it is written, it is very difficult to change. It becomes a permanent record. So, there is no flexibility. Every time the same document will be read in the same way, will be interpreted in the same way. So, there is lack of flexibility. And as the written communication takes time to reach the receiver, there is delay in decision making. Every person has to read it, understand it in his own way, and then on the basis of that decisions are made. So, when it comes to the formal business or professional communication, if we communicate only through written form, then it causes a delay in decision making, because oral communication results in immediate decisions, but written communication takes time. There is another problem with written communication, the formality problem. Formality problem means every written document has a format, and the person who is going to write something has to follow that format, whether it is a letter or it is a memo or it is an email, whatever it is, the person has to follow a format. So, there is this formality problem or formality aspect of written communication, which is somewhat a limitation in written communication. Now, at the end of the lecture, the summing up of this lecture, as I have tried my best to make you understand what is communication. Communication is sharing of information between two people at least, or number of people, from one individual to the other individual or to the other group, from one institution to other institution. But the purpose of this act of communicating, this process of communicating, is to create an understanding. Understanding because we have to work in collaboration, in cooperation of people around us, and with a compatibility with the surroundings. So, communication helps in creating that understanding and coordinating with people and the situations around us. So, communication has two basic types, verbal and non-verbal communication, and these types are dependent upon the use of words. So, we have non-verbal oral communication and we have non-verbal written communication. These types are interconnected. We have verbal oral communication and we have verbal written communication. So, these are the various you can say dimensions of communication which have their own advantages and disadvantages, which have their own powers and limitations. So, an individual, a professional has to be very well aware of these basic types and has to be very careful in making a selection of the type of communication to convey a particular meaning at a particular time, because both types have their own advantages and limitations, and both types need skills and care on the part of the communicator to encode the message, to make a right selection in everything, because no one wants to be misunderstood, no one wants to be misinterpreted. So, it is the task of the communicator to make a careful selection of things, selection of words at the time of communicating with people, either orally or in written form, either verbally or in non-verbal form. So, that is it with this lecture. Then thank you all.